What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Nick Does Tech Stuff, where I am now going to do a Doug DeMuro style intro. This is a 1997 Compaq Presario 4800, and it is one of my most prized possessions. The Compaq Presario 4800, specifically 4880 this guy, is the pinnacle of 1997 computer technology, featuring a 400 MHz Pentium 2, 64 megabytes of RAM, a 12 gig hard drive, a DVD-ROM drive, and 4 megabytes of 2x AGP ATI Rage Pro graphics. Now, you may have heard a lot of single-digit numbers in there, and that's because, obviously, this computer is very old.
Oh, I'm like the Crypt Keeper!
It is from 1997. It is from when I was a child. It is from before my brother was born. However, none of that matters because it is my favorite computer on Earth. This computer I am particularly proud of. This is the first generation of Compaq Presario computers, which they were started in 1993, to be shaped like nothing that is in a beige box. As you can see, this literally looks like a rocket ship. And when you are a 5-year-old child in a Circuit City in Sarasota, Florida, with a cool bunch of downlighting on it, this computer is the coolest thing you will ever see and want. It's not the computer I got because we bought a beige IBM, which is why I have a mental affliction with buying rocket ships. But I love this computer. It is my favorite computer on Earth, and if you were, because be prepared for a lot of Jurassic Park references.
Welcome to Jurassic Park.
Remember in Jurassic Park?
You said you've got a T-Rex?
Uh-huh. Say again.
A Compaq Presario 4800, a black one. You would be that excited if you were a Compaq nerd. In a world full of beige, these were black. That makes these computers very, very special to me. I always wanted one. I always wanted one as a kid. And when I was actually growing up and going up to Pennsylvania from Florida on vacations, my grandmother's work, of all things, had one of these guys. She, in fact, had a 4860, which was a lower model. But this was the computer that I always wanted, I always dreamed of, I always wish I could have gotten. Of course, my parents being very loving people who were not coming from very much money, being a lower middle class family, they were spending their tax return to buy this computer. So we didn't end up with this because this computer alone was $2,300 in 1997. That did not include a monitor, that did not include software, that did not include anything. That meant you get this. If you wanted to have a complete setup, like the guy I have back here, which is a 15-inch monitor, decently powerful computer, in beige with keyboard, mouse, and speakers, that computer, which is much lower spec than this, was still $2,000. Back then, that was a lot of money. Like I said, my parents were spending their tax return. Usually that's something you do for paying off credit card bills and all that stuff. That's how much computers cost back then. They were a big deal. You didn't have $299 towers. So not getting this computer did mentally affect me, can you tell, in many ways. I've always had this system. I've been so proud of this system, particularly proud of this system because it is one of the only black computers in a world full of beige in 1997. It was the second computer I ever purchased with adult money when I had my own job. That being the first because it was the only one I could afford back in 2000 is the 97 Compaq Presario 4660, which is like the mini, more affordable version of this big guy.
Your size.
Breathtaking. I shall call him Mini-Me.
But I love this computer so much that I wanted to go over it in depth and detail with you all today. So that is exactly what we're going to do. Be prepared for a bunch of wonderful information and a tour of the exterior of the Compaq Presario 4880 computer, and then also a interior go over of some of the interesting quirks and features of what should otherwise be a very, very normal computer. Trust me, it is not your everyday ATX computer with motherboard in a tower case. So, with that said, we're going to go ahead and transition over to zooming in and panning for me to audibly dictate. The first interesting thing I actually wanted to go over with the Compaq Presario 4800 series is the most interesting thing is that it actually came in two colors. The Compaq Presario 4880 is the black computer on the left, and the computer on the right is the Compaq Presario 4824. Both of these computers were available at the same time, depending on how much money you wanted to spend, and also, realistically, how much money you had. You either could get a beige computer or a black computer. You had your choice, because you had options back in 1997 of those kind of things. You'll also notice there is a difference between them. This one has a smoked door with a slot loading CD drive, where this one is a tray loading CD drive. So physically they are actually a little different. What we're gonna do, because that is the only main difference between the two of them, is the tray loading CD drive versus the slot loading CD drive, is go over the internals of the 4800. What you'll notice on the Compaq Presario 4800, looking at the case, is it is about the standard size of an ATX tower case. But the most interesting thing actually isn't that the front is shaped really cool like a rocket ship, but also that the top of the unit has these slots. Now, what are these slots? No, they're not speed stripes. No, they don't make it faster. The Compaq Presario 4880 included 5 CD case slots. Those were to put your CD cases, which were jeweled plastic cases when you had to have media on the computer via CD, so that you could store them easily on top. Also, since these computers normally weren't always mounted next to a monitor at a desk, it made them easy to flip through if your computer sat on the ground or the floor. The other interesting thing coming from the top of the computer is the Compaq Presario 4880 features a Internet Suite and Multimedia Center right at the top of it. This was a very big deal back in the 90s, mainly because everything you had to do was usually in Windows 98 and you had to use software and it could be very buggy. So what you had was a rocket ship button, a internet button, which has a little picture of an Earth, a volume up, volume down, play, stop, forward, and back, so you could run your CDs and multimedia stuff with the touch of a button and have them play through your speakers. It also has a little button here, which is actually your power switch that had a sun and a moon, which actually turned orange and green depending on what you were doing, as well as a HDD activity light. When it comes to the rest of the machine, you'll find that this computer was so extraordinarily technologically advanced at the time that, believe it or not, behind this little smoked black bar, there is actually RCA jacks. Yellow, white, and red, which was your video and then your left and right audio. You could actually use that with the built-in DVD recorder and encoder so that you could actually record video off of a VCR, cable box, whatever you had that would plug in here, even way back when, a Nintendo or a Nintendo 64, and make your own digital videos. That was a big deal. No other computer back in the 90s had that kind of tech on it. This was the pinnacle of magic and special in the whole world. Was the 1997 Compaq Presario 4880. And that is also why it's a very big deal. And I stick my head in the camera to say that because it's really cool. These computers also, obviously you can tell this drive is aftermarket, but had a DVD-ROM drive, which meant you could watch videos and movies back when that was a thing. You literally probably didn't even have a DVD player that you could play in your home. This had it in the computer. It also made it so you could use larger compact discs called obviously digital video disc, and you could do so much more with them. As you can see, that's because it's hidden behind a door. It's got this little smoke piece to match the upper one that covers those drives and a little eject button. The CD came through here, as well as having a drive bay door covered with smoked cover with an eject button where the disk drive would come through. Obviously, when you saw when I opened it up to show the RCA jacks, had 2 expandable drive bays. All the other smaller computers, including the 4660 behind it, only had one, so you could only put in one single drive. A lot of times back then, you didn't have expansion for computers to put out any other sort of data transfer beyond doing the floppy drive, which is only 1.3 megabytes. You could also equip in this bay a iOmega zip drive, and this was actually before CD burners, so you probably actually couldn't have a second drive bay with a CD burner, but you could certainly have a high-speed CD bay in case you wanted to play games that required a much higher speed bay than the 4X original DVD-ROM drive. On the rest of the front of the computer, obviously down below the cover panel for all of the drive bay doors, is the aforementioned 3.5-inch floppy drive. The noting saying Compaq Presario, the model number proudly sporting 4800, and basically the feet of what is the rocket ship shape of this whole computer, because obviously if you see it straight from the front, this computer literally looks just like a rocket. If you go around to the other side of the Compaq Presario 4880, you'll notice that it is vented on one side. Even though the main board is on here, there was still external ventilation for the computer to provide flow through. The other side of the computer is about as plain as that side, the only main difference being the Compaq Presario 4880, of course, needed to have access to the inside, so they put a dent here for your hand so that it could easily dismount the side of the drive, which would easily pop off like so. On the back of the Compaq Presario 4880, you are obviously going to find all of the rest of your ports. The main thing you'll notice about the 4880 is that it has a very weird motherboard. Most motherboards nowadays have a block right here that has every port you'd ever need and expansion slots which actually go horizontally, not vertically. That is a very different thing in the Compaq Presario 4880. These boards all look like this. The VGA port was all the way down at the bottom. This was your printer port, your serial port. Externally, you had your game joystick port, 2 USB ports, which was very advanced for the time in '97, your PS2 ports, which were your keyboard and mouse, and then your sound in, sound out, and then your amplified audio out for your Compaq amplified speakers, and your microphone in for your built-in microphone to your Compaq multimedia monitor. Compaq multimedia monitor right back there. Also, you'll see here you have a whole bunch of expansion and drive base slots, which again are vertical, not horizontal, where you'd find your 56K modem. And I have obviously not set this up to be networked so that I can throw it in, because otherwise there would be a network card in there. Really cool thing about this and why it's set up this way, then if you'll notice there's this extra little piece of metal mounting here. This piece came out, and this is what you'd see. You could actually very easily go in here, take these cards out, take them in and do whatever you'd wanted, do the modifications you needed to, and this riser board mounts in to the computer. You would simply line it up, line these pieces up here, and then it would slide back in, making your upgrades incredibly easy. Since we've now done the exterior tour of the computer, and I'm kind of doing this as a great segue, let's go ahead and take a look at the interior of the Compaq Presario 4880. As you can see, because this is what the computer looks like when you remove the side of the computer, the Compaq Presario 4880 almost seems like it has an engine cover. It is not an engine cover. You'll notice here you have your disk drive bays, including your 3 5¼ inch drive bays, which I guess would basically hold like your CDs, iMac zip drives, etc. Down here you'd have your floppy, and then if you notice, there really isn't any extra bays for holding a hard drive. This is actually the exterior piece that carries its, well, I guess the exterior carrier that holds your drive bay. So we're actually going to take this out since you've already seen it. Go ahead and place it to the side, and take note that there is no hard drive base here. That's actually the processor. So you say, where are the hard drives? Well, interestingly enough, the Compaq Presario 4880 originally used a Quantum Bigfoot hard drive, which was a wide hard drive that was a 5¼ inch size, like your CD drives, not a regular 3½ inch size, like a regular hard drive or floppy disk would be, which was normal for the day. Because they had this very wide, very weird drive, what they in fact did was put this caddy here, which in fact holds 2 5¼ drives vertically, not horizontally. So that is why, if you notice here, you'll see a power drive and you'll also see a IDE cable hanging out. That's because this is where the hard drives were held, and it could store 2, one stacked behind the other. That's what made it so super interesting that this computer was set up like that. It almost was well gardened off the entire setup. On top of that, the Compaq Presario obviously featured the most advanced technology of the day. You will note here you've got this very large mounted heatsink, which was connected to the slot loading Intel Pentium 2 400 megahertz drive. You'll also notice that it has 1, 2, 3 memory slots. It was total capable of taking 384 megabytes of RAM, which was 3 128 megabyte sticks. This computer currently has 384 megabytes of RAM because I have a 256 and a 128 stick in it. If you put in any extra RAM, unfortunately, it will not be recognized. The other thing particularly special about the 4880 in the Compaq model series, because obviously there was a beige 4824 with a slower processor, and the 4860, which is the other one of these units I have, this computer was a 100 megahertz frontside bus system, whereas all of the other systems were 66 megahertz frontside bus. The other interesting thing you'll notice when you look over the board in the Compaq Presario 4880 is you'll notice the ATI 3D Rage Pro 2 advanced graphics. And the interesting thing about that is it actually had a add-on graphics memory. This was actually 2 megabytes of add-on memory that you put in this machine. The 4880 and 4860, and I believe a select few models, are the only ones that in fact have this. I don't know of any other video card besides very few special select ones where you actually had an expandable memory card built in for your RAM. The other thing you can see as you look around the board is obviously this slot, which is what plugs into the riser card for the PCI and ISA cards, which is what you see here. As you can see above, again, there's a bunch of extra stuff that's covering here for the hard drive base and stuff. Most of that is actually where the IDE drives go and the floppy disk cable terminates. And then in the top right corner, way back here, which I'll zoom in on because my finger's pointing at it, but you can't see it, you'll see the ESS audio driver for the sound on the computer. The other interesting thing that I always found kind of cool about this computer is it was almost designed with this piece here, that it basically was designed for cooling. If you see in the bottom here, there are active slots in the bottom of here drilled, and there's actually a little foot that actually sucks in air from here, which means the fan can suck in air from the top and the front of the computer to blow cool air over your heatsink to keep your whopping and blazing speed fast Pentium 2 400 megahertz in cool running shape. Power supply, which obviously was behind here, also had a polar fan which exhausted out the back. This power supply, interestingly enough, for all of that time back, was a whopping 120 watt power supply powering that Pentium 2. My computer that is my main rig for every day has a 1,000 watt power supply. I think its minimum is 460 with the advanced graphics card, so oh how consumption has changed. Now that we've returned back from the tour of the Compaq Presario 4880, I can kind of ruminate more on how much I love this computer. I gave you guys a tour of this computer, and as you can see, it's not your everyday 90s ATX tower case, so that's because this doesn't look like your everyday 90s ATX tower case. Compaq was very good at making their computers look cool, at least in my opinion. I loved the rocket ship shape of these computers. That is why I own that one, that is why I own that one, that is why I own that one. This computer I hold very dearly to my heart. It's a computer I always wanted when I was a kid and never got, and then when I got big boy money and am thriving, I finally was able to get it. I am so excited that I got to show the bits and pieces of this computer and show all the individual parts and kind of see what made this computer special with how it is built, how the interior is set up, why the hard drive is different, how special it was that it has RCA jacks on the front, and all of the other really cool quirks and features of this computer, because it wasn't just a boring beige tower. In fact, this computer, as well as the 4660, were the computers that Steve Jobs infamously put out on stage and did speed tests against because they were the absolute best of the best when the iMac G3 came out in 1998, which was that egg-shaped computer that basically started Apple into actually being profitable and successful from also having beige boxes. That makes a very, very big difference in life and how you compare this. This was the most technologically advanced, the coolest, the best. It was everything. No cost was spared, as the old guy with the hat says in Jurassic Park.
Spared no expense.
This computer was a very big deal. The also really cool factor in this is that these computers, especially Intel, was advertising very hard about what a big deal Intel Pentium 2 processors have. If you saw a computer and it was playing its little pre-play of the features of the computer, at one point in time, the thing would stop and it would say, including an Intel Pentium 2 processor, and you would hear this noise. And that was so super cool and important because that meant your computer had a big deal. It was so cool that your processor had its own jingle and TV commercial written for it. They weren't doing those for AMD processors. They weren't doing those for Cyrix processors. They were doing it for Intel Pentium processors. If you had an Intel Pentium, especially a Pentium 2 back in 1997, you had made it. You were a big deal, you had a jet, you had a Porsche, you were cool. Since my parents were middle class and we ended up with an AMD K62 266 MHz IBM Aptiva tower, we definitely weren't at that point. I also don't have the Porsche and all that other stuff right now, but I'm very happy to have this computer. I plan on doing more in this series on this machine, including installing the original OS so you can take a look at what it was like to use a computer in 1995 with what was on it in 1995, because Compaq had very special and interesting stuff, including its own little background groovy music theme you could just put on and play, and a background full of stars, because again, this was a spaceship and Compaq was taking you to out of this world places. Anyways, I wanted to thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed the tour of the Compaq Presario 4880. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you're interested in anything or you want to see more of this computer and what you'd like to see me do more of. I really love my vintage machines, and I am actually doing this as a passion project because I want to show everybody in the world all these different and interesting computers that I have. If you also want to follow me on Instagram, my Instagram is the same handle, Nick Does Tech Stuff, where I'm going to try to post more. I also have a personal Instagram where I also have my fitness journey going, and that is Nick Flies Places. I also post videos of me traveling. Thank you so much again for viewing the video. I appreciate all your time if you made it this far. You do not know how much it means to me. Any of my friends and family that watch this, thank you so much for supporting me and viewing all of my videos and doing all the great things you do. And also to my editor, thank you for editing this and throwing in Fire Jurassic Park things and putting in all sorts of great stuff that makes me seem way better on video than I am. So with that, have a great rest of your day. Love y'all and be nice to people.